Imagine winning the biggest war in history and then slowly losing the peace year after year until you wake up and realize the countries you once led have quietly sprinted past you. That's the post-war story of Britain. And the most shocking part is this. A big chunk of the decline wasn't destiny, it was choice. If you're serious about changing your own life, watch this all the way to the end. Because this isn't just about a country, it's a masterclass in how people, businesses, and nations fall behind. Not from one big mistake, but from a series of small decisions that feel reasonable in the moment. Two keys: post-war economic decline, a self-inflicted loss. At the end of the Second World War, Britain still looked like a great power. It had Europe's largest economy and living standards that, on paper, still beat much of a shattered continent. But 1946 wasn't a victory lap. It was a crossroads. Britain was exhausted, rationing continued, and the national debt sat at a level not seen since the Napoleonic Wars. It had the finances of a defeated nation, but the mindset of an empire that refused to accept the world had changed. And the world was changing. India gained independence in 1947, and the imperial map started peeling away like old paint. Yet Britain still tried to act like it could police the globe, defend a currency like it was sacred, and maintain prestige, while its industrial engine was quietly coughing and sputtering. By 1950, Britain spent roughly 9% of GDP on defense. Meanwhile, Germany, still recovering, spent virtually nothing on defense and poured energy into rebuilding. The warning signs were there. John Maynard Keynes cautioned that global ambition could become a weight around the neck. But politicians heard prestige and power and assumed the bill would handle itself. Here's the brutal trade-off. While Germany pushed around 15% of GDP into factories and machinery, Britain lagged at around 9%. Britain wasn't just underinvesting, it was misinvesting, choosing the appearance of greatness over the machinery that actually creates it. Even the post-war Lifeline told the story. Britain received more Marshall Plan support than West Germany, yet much of that money went into defending sterling and propping up a global role instead of upgrading plants, training workers, and modernizing production. Britain didn't lack help, it lacked focus. The tragedy is that this kind of decline doesn't look dramatic. It looks normal. A meeting, a speech, a budget, a decision that sounds responsible. Then another, then another. And suddenly, leader becomes laggard. Social progress versus industrial decline. Now, to be fair, this era also produced one of Britain's proudest achievements, the NHS and the wider welfare state. Mass poverty dropped. Life expectancy rose. Ordinary people got a safety net that previous generations could only dream of. But here's the twist. Social progress didn't automatically equal economic strength. In fact, Britain built a kinder society while its productivity problem hardened underneath the floorboards. Over the decades, living standards did rise massively compared to the post-war years. But relative to neighbors, Britain slipped behind countries like France, the Netherlands, and Germany. Why? Because the global rules Britain played under demanded discipline, especially for a country trying to defend an outsized currency role. The post-war monetary order pressured Britain to keep sterling strong and stable. That sounds noble, until you realize defending a currency is like holding your breath while running a marathon. It forces painful policies, constant emergency measures, and endless anxiety over confidence. The 1960s boom and 1970s crisis. The 1960s felt like a party. Low unemployment, cultural revolution, optimism everywhere. But under the music, Britain's industrial weakness kept showing up until it became undeniable. In 1967 came a humiliation, devaluation of the pound. Translation? The world looked at Britain and said, "We don't believe your economy matches your price tag." Then the 1970s arrived like a punch. First, an inflationary boom, fueled by huge tax cuts and policy misfires, sent demand soaring beyond what British industry could supply. Then the OPEC oil shock hit, and energy prices surged. The economy stalled, prices rose, and confidence evaporated. And then came the part people still talk about: strikes, stoppages, and the moment the lights literally went out. The miners' strike pushed Britain into the infamous three-day week, an almost unbelievable symbol of a modern nation running on emergency settings. Stagnation, the ERM, and Brexit. Then 2008 happened. The global credit crisis didn't just hurt Britain, it exposed it. When finance is your superpower, finance is also your vulnerability. After 2008, Britain entered a long era of low productivity growth and weak investment. The engine that should have been modernized decades earlier was now trying to compete in a world of high-tech supply chains, automation, and aggressive industrial strategy from others. And Britain's relationship with Europe stayed tense. Britain joined the European project, but with constant skepticism and half-commitment. The early 1990s ERM fiasco, high interest rates, an overvalued pound, recession, left scars that fed future distrust. Then in 2016, the earthquake, Brexit. For many voters, it wasn't just about policy. It was about dignity, identity, and anger at a system that felt distant. But the economic effect was clear. Years of uncertainty, friction with major trading partners, and investment decisions postponed or redirected elsewhere. The country didn't suddenly collapse. It just got slower. And in a world where other nations are sprinting, slow is its own kind of defeat. So here's your challenge. If you want a different future, stop asking, what can I maintain? And start asking, what do I need to build? If this video made you think, even a little, hit like, subscribe, and comment "I'm building" so you don't forget the lesson tomorrow. And stay to the very end of your next decision, because that's where your future is hiding.